The arena of Zierthal was built for war. It was not just a place for sport. It was a stage where strength, skill, and blood proved who deserved respect. The stone walls were high, carved with the faces of past champions, some of them human-sized, most of them monstrous. Around the open pit, thousands of alien voices filled the air, a deep rumble mixed with sharp hisses, clicking mandibles, and strange animal roars. In the center of that pit stood a young human named Eli Varen. The sun of Zierthal burned bright above him, making the sand under his boots shimmer like gold. His armor was light, made more for movement than protection. He carried a short-bladed sword in one hand, a small round shield in the other. Compared to most of the warriors here, he looked small. The Zierthali fighters were giants, their reptilian scales glinting in the light. Other alien champions were plated with bone, steel, or both. Eli had only his quick feet and his own stubborn will. The announcer's voice boomed across the arena in a harsh alien tongue, then switched to the trade language so all could understand. Next combatant, a newcomer to our great games, a human from the far colony worlds, Eli Varen. The crowd's reaction was mixed. Some booed loudly, their voices deep and threatening. Others laughed, short, sharp bursts of amusement at the idea of a human competing here. But a few cheered, curious to see how long he could survive. Eli didn't let it bother him. He had been underestimated before. On human frontier worlds, he had worked as a soldier for hire, taking jobs no one else wanted. He wasn't the biggest fighter, but he was fast, smart, and he knew how to read an opponent. The announcer continued, "And his challenger, the war beast of Vexir, the tusked slaughterer, Grashka." The heavy gates on the far side of the arena slid open. A roar shook the ground. Grashka stepped out, a creature twice Eli's height, with tusks curved like swords and arms thick as tree trunks. Its hide was dark and ridged, covered in scars. In one hand it carried a massive hammer, its head spiked with iron. Eli exhaled, slowly. "All right," he muttered to himself, "fast and smart." The beast charged. Sand exploded under its feet. Eli dodged to the side, feeling the rush of wind as the hammer slammed into the ground where he had been standing a moment before. The impact left a crater in the sand. The crowd roared in approval, not for Eli, but for the beast. Grashka swung again, wide and powerful. Eli ducked low, rolling under the swing, and slashed at the creature's side. The blade scraped across thick hide, not deep enough to hurt it much, but enough to make it roar in anger. Good, Eli thought. Make it angry. Angry means sloppy. Up in the royal balcony, Princess Karina leaned forward, her golden armor catching the sun. She was tall, her skin a deep bronze shade, her hair braided with small silver chains. Her eyes were sharp, following Eli's every move. Beside her, the warlord, her father, watched with his usual cold expression. "A human," he said, almost to himself. "He will last 2 minutes." Karina said nothing yet. She simply studied Eli, noting how he moved, how he used the beast's size against it. Down in the arena, Grashka stomped forward, swinging wildly now. Eli ducked, sidestepped, and jabbed at the beast's legs, aiming for tendons. It roared again, frustrated. Each miss made it angrier. Each dodge made it chase harder. Eli knew the hammer was deadly, but also slow. He just had to tire the beast out. The fight went on for minutes. Eli's breathing grew heavier, sweat running down his neck, but he kept moving. Grashka's swings grew slower, the weight of the hammer dragging its arm down. Eli saw his chance. The beast swung high, too high. Eli dropped low, slid across the sand between its legs, and stabbed upward into the softer flesh of its inner thigh. The roar that followed was deafening. Grashka staggered, dropping to one knee. Eli didn't waste the moment. He ran up the beast's bent leg, leapt onto its back, and drove his sword deep into the base of its skull. The massive body shuddered, then fell forward into the sand with a ground-shaking thud. For a heartbeat, the arena went silent. Then the crowd erupted. Some cheered, others booed. Some shouted in rage that their champion had fallen to a soft-skinned outsider. But no one could deny what they had just seen. The young human had beaten the war beast. Eli stood over the fallen creature, chest heaving, sword still in hand. He glanced up toward the royal balcony. That was when Princess Karina rose to her feet. Her voice rang out over the arena, clear and strong. "That one," she said, pointing directly at Eli, "is mine." The crowd gasped. Whispers spread like wildfire. On Zierthal, such words carried heavy meaning. To claim a warrior in public was no small thing. It meant ownership, protection, and responsibility. It meant the warrior's fate was tied to the one who claimed them. The warlord turned his head sharply toward her. "You would claim a human?" he said in a low, dangerous tone. "I would," Karina replied, her eyes never leaving Eli. "And I will." Eli frowned up at her. He didn't like the sound of mine. He had fought for his own freedom too many times to let anyone own him. But the way the crowd reacted, the shock, the respect, the fear, told him that her claim had just changed. Something. Without it, he might be dragged off by one of the other nobles, or worse. The announcer's voice boomed again, barely hiding his excitement. "By the word of the Princess Karina, the human warrior Eli Varin is claimed. By our laws, his fate will be decided in the trials to come." The crowd roared again, some in approval, some in protest. Eli kept his eyes on Karina, wondering why she had done it. She didn't look away. There was something in her gaze, not pity, not arrogance, but interest. Almost like she had just found a weapon she had been searching for. As the guards came to escort him out of the arena, Eli thought to himself, "What have I just been pulled into?" Up in the balcony, Karina smiled faintly to herself. She knew exactly what she was doing. The stone corridors beneath the arena smelled of dust, metal, and old blood. Torches burned along the walls, their flickering light making shadows dance. Eli walked between two Zierthali guards, both towering reptilian figures with bronze armor and long spears. His sword and shield had already been taken. They led him into a small chamber, round, with a single chair in the center and a high window near the ceiling. Sunlight poured in, lighting a circle on the floor. Eli stayed standing. He didn't like feeling trapped. The guard stepped back, leaving him alone. Moments later, the door opened again. Princess Karina stepped inside. She was still wearing her golden armor from the balcony, the silver chains in her braids catching the light. Her eyes locked on him immediately, sharp and unflinching. Eli crossed his arms. "Mind explaining what that mine business was about?" Karina smiled, slightly. "On Zierthal, to claim a warrior is to take responsibility for them. Their victories are your victories. Their mistakes are your shame." "Sounds like ownership to me," Eli said flatly. "It is protection," she replied. "Without my claim, you would already be chained in the dungeons of Lord Vexir or some other noble. They would use you until you broke, and then feed you to the beasts." Eli stared at her for a moment. "So, I should thank you?" "You should survive first," Karina said. "My father will not simply allow a human to rise in our arenas without proving himself. You have 3 trials ahead. If you succeed, my claim stands. If you fail, you will belong to someone else." Eli's jaw tightened. "And if I don't want to belong to anyone?" Her gaze sharpened. "Then you must win. It is the only way." The warlord's terms. The sound of heavy footsteps echoed in the corridor. The door opened again, and the warlord of Zierthal entered. His presence filled the room like a storm cloud. His armor was dark iron, his scales almost black, and his eyes a deep, cold gold. "Human," he said, his voice like grinding stone. "You fight well, but one victory means nothing here." Eli didn't bow. "I fight better than your war beast." A few of the guards shifted uneasily at his tone. The warlord's eyes narrowed, but a faint curl of amusement touched his mouth. "We will see. You will face 3 trials. If you survive them, you will earn your place. If not—" He glanced at Karina. "Even my daughter cannot protect you." "And if I win?" Eli asked. "Then," the warlord said, "you will be free. Free to fight for glory or to leave Zirthal with your life and honor intact." Eli gave a short nod. "Fine, I'll win." The warlord turned to Karina. "He is yours to prepare. But know this, if he fails, you will bear the shame of his defeat." "I understand," she replied. The warlord left without another word. Training. Begins. Karina led Eli through winding corridors to a private training hall. It was a large open space with racks of weapons, sand pits for sparring, and practice dummies shaped like alien warriors. "Your skill is good," she said as she removed her golden armor. Underneath, she wore light battle leathers, flexible and built for speed. "But your style is purely human. Against Zirthali champions, you need more." Eli raised an eyebrow. "And you're going to teach me?" "Yes," she said. "And you will teach me what it means to fight like a human." Eli smirked faintly. "Deal." For hours they trained. Karina showed him how Zirthali warriors used their tails for balance and as weapons, how they shifted their weight in combat, how their armor left certain weak points. In return, Eli demonstrated human feints, quick dodges, and unpredictable footwork. "You rely on reading the opponent," Karina noted. "That is dangerous but effective." "You rely on intimidation," Eli countered. "Works on most enemies, not on me." They exchanged blows, testing each other's speed and reflexes. At first, Karina held back, but soon she was moving at full speed. Eli barely kept up, but he adapted quickly. Every hit he avoided, every block he made, gave him more insight into her style. When they finally stopped, both were breathing hard. "You learn fast," Karina said, a hint of respect in her voice. "You hit hard," Eli replied. "Remind me not to make you angry." The first warning. That night, as Eli returned to his small quarters, he found a scrap of parchment under his door. It was written in the trade language. "Leave the arena, human, or you will not see your next sunrise. Vexir." Eli stared at it for a moment, then crumpled it and tossed it aside. In the shadows outside his door, a small four-legged alien servant watched, then scurried away. Word would reach Karina soon enough. In the royal chambers, later that evening, Karina entered her chambers to find one of her spies waiting. The small alien knelt and whispered about Vexir's threat to Eli. Her expression darkened. She knew Vexir would not hesitate to arrange an accident during the trials. The first trial might already be rigged. She sent word to Eli immediately. When he arrived, she told him plainly, "Vexir means to kill you in the arena. You cannot simply win. You must humiliate him. Make it impossible for him to touch you without shaming himself." Eli leaned against the wall. "That sounds like a plan that makes me more enemies." "It will make you the right enemies," she said. "On Zirthal, if you shame a noble in front of the people, they cannot act against you openly. Even my father obeys that law." Eli considered it. "All right, but if we're doing this, we're doing it my way." Karina tilted her head. "Your way." He smiled faintly. "Fast and smart. You'll see." The first trial. The next day, the arena was full again. The sun burned bright, and the crowd was restless. The announcer's voice boomed over the noise. "First trial of the claimed human warrior, Eli Varen, his opponent, the four-armed gladiator, Kragor the Bonebreaker." From the far gate, Kragor emerged, a towering alien with 4 muscular arms, each gripping a curved blade. His skin was gray and rough, his eyes like burning coals. Eli stepped into the arena, his sword and shield ready. The crowd's noise swelled. Some called his name, others shouted insults. The fight began fast. Kragor came at him with a whirlwind of strikes, his 4 blades flashing in the sunlight. Eli dodged left, ducked low, and blocked with his shield. Every strike he avoided seemed to anger Kragor more. But Eli wasn't just defending. He was studying, watching how Kragor's arms moved, where his swings left openings, how his feet shifted on the sand. Finally, Eli saw it. Kragor's left foot always slipped slightly after his 3rd strike. The next time it happened, Eli stepped in, slammed his shield into Kragor's chest, and swept his legs. The big alien crashed into the sand. The crowd gasped. Eli didn't finish him with a killing blow. Instead, he placed his sword tip lightly against Kragor's throat and looked up at the royal balcony where Vexir sat. Then, slowly, he stepped back and let Kragor stand, untouched but beaten. The crowd roared in approval, not because Eli had killed, but because he had shown control, skill, and confidence. From the balcony, Vexir's face twisted with fury. Karina smiled faintly. Eli had just made his move. After the fight back in the training hall, Eli dropped his sword on the rack and took a deep breath. 1 down, Karina nodded, and 2 to go. But you've already won something more important. The people are talking. They like you. That will make Vexir's next move harder. Eli smirked. Good. Let's make it impossible for him to touch me. Her eyes glinted. Then we train harder. The second trial will not be as simple. Eli just grinned. I wouldn't want it to be. Somewhere in the shadows of the arena's upper halls, Lord Vexir was already planning his next move. The sun was still climbing when the crowd began to fill the great arena once more. By now, the name Eli Varen had been whispered in market stalls, taverns, and training halls all over Zirthal. Some called him lucky, others called him clever. But everyone agreed on one thing. He was different from any fighter they had seen. From the royal balcony, Karina watched the gathering audience with a thoughtful expression. She had seen the change in how the crowd looked at Eli after his first trial. It wasn't just curiosity anymore. There was excitement. Even the common people of Zirthal, who rarely cared for foreign fighters, were beginning to cheer for him. But the nobles? They watched with narrowed eyes. None more so than Lord Vexir. His dark green scales gleamed in the sunlight, his long golden robes flowing around him as he leaned against the balcony rail. His expression was calm, but Karina could feel the venom beneath it. Vexir had been embarrassed once. He wouldn't let it happen again. In the preparation hall. Below the arena, Eli strapped on his armor. It was the same light set he had worn before, but now it had a few scratches from training. His shield was freshly polished, and his sword sharpened to a clean edge. Karina entered the hall, her steps quick and purposeful. The second trial will be harder, she warned. Eli smirked. That's the idea, isn't it? This isn't just a harder opponent, she said seriously. Vexir will try something. The second trial is the easiest place to arrange an accident. You must be ready for tricks, not just strength. Eli nodded slowly. Any clue what I'm up against? Karina's eyes narrowed. Yes. A fighter called Threx the Flame-Blooded. Fast. Strong. But most dangerous because he likes to play with his prey before striking the killing blow. Eli strapped his shield to his arm. Good. That means he'll give me time to figure him out. Karina's lips curved slightly. Just don't give him time to figure you out. The arena roars. The announcer's booming voice echoed through the air. Second trial of the claimed human warrior, Eli Varen. His opponent, the master of burning steel, the pride of the southern arenas, Threx the Flame-Blooded. From the far gate came a tall, lean alien with crimson scales that shimmered in the light. In each hand he held a short, curved blade glowing faintly with heat. His eyes burned with a predator's focus. The crowd erupted in cheers. Threx was a favorite here. Eli stepped out to meet him, calm and steady. His eyes never left Threx's hands. The fight began without warning. Threx lunged forward in a blur, his heated blades slashing fast. Eli blocked one strike with his shield, twisted away from the second, and barely avoided a third. Quick, Eli thought. Too quick to chase. Make him come to me. He shifted his stance, staying just out of reach. Threx's strikes grew faster, sharper, testing Eli's defenses. The heat from the blades was intense. Even a near miss made the air burn against Eli's skin. The hidden. Danger up in the balcony, Karina watched closely, and then saw it. A faint shimmer in the sand near Eli's feet. She frowned. That was no natural heat distortion. It was an energy snare, invisible until stepped on. Her eyes shot to Vexir, who was smiling faintly. Of course, the trap would lock Eli in place, if he stepped into it, leaving him open for Threx's killing blow. Karina's hands gripped the rail. She couldn't warn him without drawing attention. She had to trust that he'd see it. Eli's counter-Threx feinted left, then struck right. Eli blocked, then stepped back, and froze mid-step. His boot hovered above the sand. There it was. The shimmer. Without missing a beat, he shifted his weight and kicked sand hard into the air. The fine dust swirled and caught the light, revealing the trap's faint outline. The crowd gasped. Eli grinned at Threx. Nice trick your friend set up for me. Threx's expression didn't change, but his strikes grew more aggressive. Now Eli changed his strategy. Instead of retreating, he closed in, forcing Threx into tighter movements where his speed was less of an advantage. Every time Threx swung, Eli's shield or sword was there to deflect it. Then Eli made his move, a sudden step forward, shield bashing Threx's chest hard enough to knock him back into the sand. Threx rolled and sprang up again, but now Eli had the rhythm. He struck low at Threx's legs, then high at his arms, forcing him off balance. Finally, with a quick twist, Eli sent one of the heated blades flying from Threx's hand. The finish. With only one blade left, Threx tried to circle, but Eli didn't let him. He pressed forward, shield up, until Threx's back touched the arena wall. Then, in a single motion, Eli slammed his shield into Threx's chest and pressed his sword tip to the fighter's throat. The crowd roared, but Eli didn't kill him. Instead, he stepped back, lowered his sword, and offered Threx a hand. For a moment, Threx stared at him, then took the hand and stood. The crowd went wild. They weren't just cheering for a victory. They were cheering for a show of respect, something rare in the Zirthal arenas. Up in the balcony, Vexir's smile was gone. The growing bond later in the training hall, Karina met Eli with a satisfied look. "You saw the trap," she said. "Hard to miss once you've been on enough battlefields," Eli replied. "You learn to look at the ground as much as the enemy." Karina's respect for him grew. He wasn't just skilled, he was cautious, calculating. That was rare among warriors here. "You've humiliated Vexir again," she said. "The people are starting to take your side. Even some of the lesser nobles are speaking in your favor." Eli smirked. "Good. That means when the last trial comes, they'll be watching too closely for him to try anything obvious." Karina's smile was faint, but genuine. "The last trial will be the hardest, and I suspect Vexir will find a way to make it deadly." The quiet warning. That night, as Eli sat in his quarters cleaning his sword, there was a soft knock at the door. When he opened it, a small alien servant stood there, trembling. "You must be careful," it whispered in the trade language. "The last trial will not be fair. They plan to use the Iron Serpent." Eli's brow furrowed. "Iron Serpent?" The servant nodded quickly. "A beast-machine hybrid. No champion has survived it in 10 years. Before Eli could ask more, the servant slipped away into the shadows. In the balcony shadows far above, Vexier spoke quietly to one of his agents. "The third trial will be his last," he said coldly. "Make sure the beast is encouraged, and if the princess tries to interfere, deal with her too." The agent nodded and vanished. Vexier's eyes turned toward the arena floor. He imagined the human crushed beneath the iron serpent's weight. The image pleased him. Eli's resolve back in the training hall, Eli told Karina what the servant had said. Her face darkened. "If it is the iron serpent, you will need more than skill. You will need a plan." Eli tightened the straps on his armor. "Then we'd better start making one." By the time the sun rose on the day of the final trial, the entire city would know that the human had survived 2 battles no outsider was supposed to win. The Iron Serpent awaited, and so did Vexier's final attempt to destroy him. The morning sun in Kraltar was hidden behind thick red clouds, but the city below still roared with excitement. Today was the Arena of Fire, a grand trial where warriors from across the galaxy came to prove their strength. The arena was built into the side of a black mountain, its walls carved from volcanic stone, and the stands were packed with aliens of every shape and size. In the middle of it all stood Jarek, the young human warrior. His armor was scorched from training, and his hands tightened around the hilt of his sword. He could hear the crowd chanting, not his name, but the name of his opponent. Across from him stood Vorak the Iron Claw, a massive reptilian warrior from the Shar Dominion. His scales were dark green, his claws longer than knives, and his body shimmered with natural armor. His reputation was known far beyond Kraltar. Many said he had never been beaten. But Jarek wasn't thinking about fame. He was thinking about Princess Kalira. She was seated high above on the royal balcony, wearing armor of silver and crimson. Her expression was calm, but her eyes never left him. She had been training him for weeks, pushing him to his limits, telling him he was capable of more than even he believed, and now this was his test. The announcer's voice echoed through the arena. "By the decree of the royal court, this is the trial of claim. If the challenger falls, the claim is broken. If the challenger wins, the claim is honored." The crowd roared louder. Some cheered for Jarek, curious to see what a human could do. Most laughed, certain that the young outsider would be crushed. Kylira's gaze didn't waver. Weeks ago, she had shocked everyone by pointing at Jarek and claiming him as hers. She had ignored the protests of her advisors, the mocking of the nobles, and the warning from her father, the High Warlord. Now the Arena of Fire would decide if her choice had been foolish. The gong rang. Vorak lunged first, moving far faster than his huge body should allow. His claws slashed at Jarek's chest, but Jarek rolled aside, the tip of his sword flashing up in a quick counterattack. Steel met scale and bounced off. The reptilian warrior grinned, his teeth jagged and yellow. "You are nothing but prey, human." Jarek didn't reply. He remembered Kalira's words from their last training session. Don't fight his body. Fight his mind. So Jarek moved, not straight at Vorak, but in circles, always keeping distance, testing his reach. The crowd began to jeer, thinking he was running away, but Kalira's eyes narrowed. She knew exactly what he was doing. Vorak attacked again, faster, more aggressive. His claws gouged deep lines in the arena floor. Jarek blocked one strike with his sword, ducked under another, and then rolled away from a third that would have torn him in half. Sweat poured down his face, but his breathing stayed steady. He had been training in the mountains with Kalira, learning to move, dodge, and make his enemies waste energy. Still, Vorak was relentless. He cornered Jarek against the arena wall, claws ready to strike. The crowd held its breath. Vorak swung. Jarek dropped to one knee, letting the claw slam into the wall above him, shattering the stone. As the reptilian warrior tried to pull free, Yarek drove his sword into the joint of his arm, right between the scales. The blade sank deep, and Vorak roared in pain. Blood, dark and thick, splashed onto the floor. The crowd exploded into shouts and gasps. Vorak yanked his arm free and slammed his tail at Jarek, sending him flying backward. Pain shot through Jarek's ribs. But he forced himself to stand. His sword was still in hand, and his opponent's left arm now hung limp. Kalyra leaned forward in her seat. The fight grew even more brutal. Vorak's strikes were slower now, but his rage made them unpredictable. Jarek took a shallow cut across his thigh, another across his shoulder, but he refused to give ground. Every time Vorak swung, Jarek answered with a precise strike to a joint or an unarmored gap. Slowly, the reptilian warrior began to bleed more. The crowd's mood started to shift. They weren't mocking Jarek anymore. They were watching with hungry curiosity. Then Vorak made a mistake. He charged, lowering his head for a killing blow, and Jarek sidestepped, planting his sword deep into the side of his neck. Vorak stumbled forward, gurgled something, and collapsed to the ground with a heavy thud. Silence. Then the arena erupted into cheers, screams, and wild roars. The announcer's voice boomed. "The victor, Jarek of Terra! The claim stands!" Kalyra rose from her seat. The guard stepped aside as she walked down into the arena. The crowd parted, whispering in awe as she approached Jarek. He stood there, blood on his armor, sword still in hand, chest rising and falling with exhaustion. When Kalyra stopped in front of him, the world seemed to quiet again. "You have done well," she said softly, but loud enough for everyone to hear. "You are not only mine by claim, you are mine by honor." The crowd gasped. In Kraltar, culture mine by honor was not just possession. It was recognition, respect, and a bond unbreakable by law. Jarek didn't know all the customs, but he understood the weight in her voice. He nodded once. Kalyra turned to the stands, lifting her arm. "Let it be known to all. The human stands as my chosen." The crowd roared again, some in celebration, others in disbelief. Up in the royal balcony, the High Warlord's expression was unreadable. He had not approved of his daughter's claim, but now the human had proven himself in the arena. Tradition demanded the victory be respected. Still, the warlord's eyes narrowed, not in anger, but in calculation. Later that evening, in Kalyra's private chambers, she and Jarek spoke quietly. "You know this is not over," she said, pacing. "You won the arena, but now you have made enemies among the nobles and the warlords. They will try to challenge you again, and next time they will not wait for the arena." Jarek nodded. "Then I'll keep training. I didn't come here to hide." Kalyra's lips curved slightly. "Good, because soon you will need to fight not for a claim, but for a war." Outside, the city of Kraltar glowed under the red clouds. Somewhere in the shadows, plans were already being made against them. The arena of fire was just the beginning. The city of Kraltar lay quiet under a dark sky, but the tension in its stone walls was heavy, like a storm about to break. The battle in the arena had ended, but the war was just beginning. Inside the great hall of the High Warlord, heavy banners hung from the walls, their colors faded but proud. The warlord himself sat on a throne carved from black stone, his dark eyes watching the young human warrior, Eli, who now stood before him. Next to Eli stood Princess Karina, tall and steady, her gaze never leaving her father's. The hall was filled with noble lords and ladies, their faces sharp and full of whispered opinions. Some looked openly angry at the sight of the human standing there, while others were curious. This was a moment that would change the course of their world. The warlord's voice cut through the silence. "Eli Varen, you have survived the trials. You have fought with strength and skill unlike any human we have seen." Eli straightened his shoulders. "I fight to live. And to be free. The warlord nodded slowly. Your victories have stirred the people and unsettled the nobles. Many fear what you represent. Karina stepped forward. Father, he has earned his place, not as a slave, but as a free warrior of Zirthal. The warlord's eyes met. Hers, and for a moment, the power struggle between father and daughter was clear. Then he turned back to Eli. I offer you a final challenge, he said. Not of combat, but of command. You will lead a squad against the pirate raiders threatening our trade routes. If you succeed, you will be recognized as a free warrior, with all rights. Eli looked at Karina. She gave a small nod. I accept, Eli said. The next days were a whirlwind. Eli trained with his new squad, a mix of Zirthali warriors, alien mercenaries, and even a few humans who had come seeking fortune. He learned their strengths and weaknesses, blending his human tactics with their alien fighting styles. When the time came to face the pirates, the mission was dangerous. The pirates were brutal, attacking without mercy. But Eli's leadership turned the tide. He used clever traps, quick strikes, and worked with his team's unique skills to defeat the raiders and secure the trade routes. Upon their return, the city greeted them with cheers. The warlord stood again before the crowd and announced, Eli Varen is now a free warrior of Zirthal. He fights for us, not owned by any house, but bound by honor and alliance. Karina smiled proudly. She stepped beside Eli, her hand brushing his arm, a silent sign of their bond. The crowd roared his name, no longer as an outsider, but as a champion. Eli looked out over the faces before him, knowing this was only the beginning. The galaxy was vast and full of challenges, but with allies like Karina by his side, he was ready.